their lives following having a peace fellowship. It almost brings tears to my eyes every time I get a group of these together with a panel. It's just so, I don't know, more than overwhelming. It's just, it makes you so proud to be a Rotarian and to be a part of something that sponsors these young people. It's hard to fit everything in a day, okay? So we are a little bit behind, but we have a very significant session that is next coming up that will be about positive peace projects and peace building, club level, etc. Lori Menzel, as many of you might know, is serving a dual role in this district. She's a charter member of the E-Club for Peace Builders, but she's also the Major Gifts Officer for Rotary International, Rotary Foundation. So she's not here in that capacity. She's here as a club member, but we recognize her significant role as well as coming from Rotary International. So I'd like to not take any more time away from Lori and bring Lori up to do her session, and we'll see where we are when you're finished.
Hello.
Yep. Cool. Okay. It's hard when you wear a dress and there's no pockets to put the mic back. So I'm going to, as long as the battery holds. If it doesn't, I have a pretty loud voice, so we'll go with that. And I do have some notes with me because, as Juanita said, we're new, right? I'm a new peace builder, and when I put this together today, I thought, wow, what a privilege to be up here. And two of the hardest spots, I think, in the day. After lunch, right? When you've had your lunch and you've had your cookie and everything else. And then also after this amazing panel, how can I get up here and talk about peace when we've had all these amazing things that these Peace Fellows are doing? I mean, and as a person who works for the Rotary Foundation and raises the money, it is amazing to see this, right? Because you, as Rotarians, are the ones that fund every single Peace Fellow. So I hope that you're proud of that, because thank you, because that's why we're here, and they're doing incredible things. So I hope that you've learned at least one thing so far. Have you written anything down? A couple things, just a few things. You have someone writing it down for you, because it's a lot, as Juanita said. And we're on a journey, right? We're on a journey through this that we are working on. And so what I want to do today in my time with you is I want it to be a little more interactive, because we've been doing a lot of sitting, which is kind of what you do with these things, right? But my prior background is in fitness. So what I want you to do with, and no jumping. No, stop it. No. Anyway, but what I want you to do is I want you to stand. I'm going to get you out of your comfort zone for a minute. And if you're not at a table with a bunch of people, I want you to join another table. But what I want you to do is I want you to stand up, because we need to move. We've been sitting a lot. And I want you to think about the word peace. Okay? So have you heard of the song, YMCA? Okay, so I want you, as a table, together, I want you to form the word peace with your bodies. Okay? So it might take Renee might be here, and I might be the team. Right? Take two of us. Everybody's peace is going to look different, right? You're looking at me like I'm completely crazy. I know, I see your faces. I see your faces. But be creative. If you don't want to do it with your body, don't you have pencil and paper? Okay, so however you want. Right, there you go. See, there's a piece. Right? Or maybe you talk about it, but get up and move for just a minute.
Okay, everybody, let's see your P. Show me a P. Show me a P. I'm working.
See? All right, about 1 minute, just 1 minute. Oh.
All right, who's the P? Show me a P. Show me an E. Who's A? Can you see me? E. All right.
Very careful.
Okay. All right. All right, so. Not sure what that did. Okay. Awesome. Okay, thank you. So as you looked around, did you see the same piece? Did every table make the same thing? No.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like what we've been talking about today, where, all right, I'm losing control. I lost control. All right. Awesome. So when you looked around, it was all different, right? Kind of what Bill talked about, what we've been talking about all today is that peace looks different, right? It looks different for every person. We all have something different in mind of what that looks like. And I don't think I picked up my clicker, did I? Thank you. Okay. Awesome. So as we're together today, I think that's really an important word, right? Together we build tomorrow's peace. We're on this journey together. It's not just about me. It's not just about you. And it takes a whole bunch of us to really move the needle, as they say. And so I want to continue to be kind of interactive today. And before we get into some of the personal application, I want to go through a couple of these because we've thrown a lot of information at you today. All right, so who in the group would like please to read the definition? Just anybody, shout it out. Go ahead and read it.
Positive peace, the attitudes, institutions, and structures that create and sustain peaceful society, and is transformational in that it is a cross-cutting facilitator for progress.
Thank you. So that's the expanded, right? You saw the one before where it stopped after the word society. So you'll see both of these out there. But I wanted to add the transformational because the work that we're looking at, that we're trying to do, even in small increments, can be transformational. Whether it's in the attitudes, the institutions, structures. Just think of your own home. Think of your Rotary Club. Think of where you work, your communities. Just think about the attitudes. What happens when those attitudes are negative, or they're too overwhelmingly positive, or they're out of sync with what's going on? Just think of those different things, right? Just that one word, attitudes, or the structures, but that what we can do can cross that to make those changes that we want to see. All right, who wants to read the negative piece?
Negative piece, absence of violence or fear of violence.
Right. You notice how small that definition is compared to the positive peace one? That really struck me how the negative peace definition is just barely a sentence compared to positive peace. And it's the easy way out. Yeah. But really, and the one thing that I'm in the midst of, and I'm going to read it so that I don't get it wrong, but I'm in the midst of the IEP Ambassador Program, just started it. And two of the observations they talked about when they talked about the negative piece was just because there is a lack of violence doesn't mean a country has high positive peace. Just because there is a lack of violence. And the other thing is that negative peace doesn't really tell you what you need for a peaceful society. Just because you get rid of a war or just because you get rid of something that is causing that violence doesn't necessarily mean that's telling you what they need for positive peace. So I thought that was very interesting as well when you come along with that. And then Bill talked also about What are they? The 8 pillars of positive peace. They're all interconnected. There's a lot there. There's a lot of meat there in all those 8 pillars that are really all connected. Think about it for a minute. Just think again. Think small, right? We have to start small. We can't change the world. We can try, but we're not going to change the world in 30 days or whatever your time frame you're looking at. But think about your family or your Rotary Club. Which one of these pillars might be something that's important to increasing the positive peace just in your club? Free flow of information. How many times have I heard, I didn't get that email, or they didn't send it to everybody?
They definitely got the email. They didn't read it.
Well, they might, yes. Or it went into my spam, or something like that, right? Or any of those things. Or they only sent it to that group. Right? And what does that do to the good relations with neighbors? Right? Those type of things. Or even the acceptance of rights of others. How accepting are we of those new members into our clubs? Or the people that don't read your emails. Exactly. Or even down to the well-functioning government. How well, take it down to the club level, take it anywhere, how well is it functioning? Is it functioning? Sometimes it's better than others. But it's so interesting, like when Bill talked about it, how you can equate this at different levels. It's not just at that very, very top level. But it's really an interesting thing to think about, even in your family, right? Well, they didn't invite us to that party, or whatever it is, whatever it looks like, right? So I think that's important. I like this quote. I can't remember where I was or where I saw it to begin with, but would someone read it for me?
Does that mean in absence of conflict, differences will always be there? Peace means solving those differences through peaceful means, through dialogue, education, knowledge, and through humane ways.
I really like that. Peace does not mean an absence of conflicts. There's going to be conflicts, right? We're human. Those things are going to happen. But it's how we approach them. How do we reach out and work with each other? Does it help if we yell at each other? Does it help if we send nasty emails? Does it help if we're on the stage and we are up there and we're talking about things that we know? What did Bill say? Where you intentionally irritate somebody in the audience that's there? You're poking at people. Bullying, how much social media out there do we have right now that is just terrible? I mean, there's so much of it that is just hatred. And there's just so much that we could solve just through talking. And the other night we had Dr. Charles Davidson from the George Mason University Carter School come and talk to us. Of course, via Zoom, because we're a virtual club. But he's also part of the Political Leadership Academy that they have there. And he gave the example of this where they had one cabinet member from Pelosi and one from McConnell in the same academy. And how that played out with just getting to know each other and realizing, wow, we are human. We do have a lot of things in common. We may not agree on everything, but we can communicate with each other. Or even he said I've had people that come in that are either from the far left or the far right, and they have to work together on this academy, and they realize, first of all, that they have been so siloed that they've never met anybody that thinks any differently than they do. And so they automatically assume, which we know is a terrible word, that the other person is wrong. And how can I go about changing their mind instead of widening my own perspective to maybe be able to communicate with each other? So it's just very interesting when you think about some of the ways that we can do this, but we don't necessarily employ them, right? We sometimes think, well, this is my opinion, and I'm going to make sure that Rudy takes my opinion because I don't care what he thinks. Yeah. Yeah. So it's very interesting. Yes.
Great article on page 20 of this new Rotary magazine that just came out about bias and bigotry. It speaks to exactly what you said.
Awesome. I haven't had a chance to read that, so good. Okay, page 20. All right. Okay, so I know we are working on time here. So I want us to get a little personal now. I want us to spend some time personally thinking about what we've been listening to today, right? I want you to think about a couple things, and then I want you to talk with your table as well. You don't have to stand up and share it with all of us because we're on a journey. I want you to think about what is your personal definition of peace. And it might change. You might think about it today, and next week it may change. But I want you to start thinking, how do we apply it if we don't really start to think about it and what it really means to us and what then we can do with it? So I want you to spend a minute, and I want you to think of what is your personal definition of peace. And then I want you to think about how does that relate to positive peace? How does it relate to positive peace? And I'll go back and I will put that up there for a minute. But just start with that, not the other two things on the bottom. But just for a minute, I want you to think about what does peace mean to me? How does it relate to positive peace? And then have a discussion, whoever wants to, at your table and talk about it. If you're comfortable, right? This is no pressure, right? This is no pressure. We are peaceful. And so just take a few minutes now and ponder those two things.
Good luck. Hello.
I'm good, thank you.
We also have some wireless mics we can use.
All right, who's going to talk at this table? Huh? Okay. No, I'm working. I used to work for the U.S. Institute of Peace. Yep. Right down there by Lincoln. Right by the Lincoln Memorial. Yeah, the building with the dove on top of it. That's the U.S. Institute of Peace, right by State Department. It looks like a white roof, but if you look at it, it's a picture of a dove. It's a dove. Yeah, I worked there. I worked UN peacekeeping operations. I did 2 operations in Africa. I did the Central African Republic when they had an election change, and we went down to keep the tribes apart. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Oh, yes. Ran around Africa for 5 years. I had the belt from Djibouti to Senegal. I call it the belt. I had the countries from Djibouti to Senegal. All the garden spots. DRC, Congo, Djibouti, Ghana, Burundi, Rwanda, Gambia. Yep. Yep. We went down there and taught them necropsy, how to do animal necropsies and find infectious diseases. No, it's this one. It's this one.
It's not coming through.
Peace on the continent was the ability to listen. Listen to each other. would take us a couple years to establish a relationship with whatever tribe. Like when we went down to do clean water, we take everything. Americans go down there knowing where they want to go. So they able to go down and they're starting to die. So it's like just go to the west.
Hello.
Pissed off the whole time. Especially women. Well, women wanted to walk the 5 miles to get to water. You know why? Get away and socialize.
Yeah, this is not. I checked.
About 1 minute, 1 to 2 minutes.
I got a mic here.
Okay, wrap up your discussion so we can keep moving. Go get my phone. Okay, let's come back to our group. I know you could probably talk forever, which would be awesome. Okay, so let's just take a minute or two while we are together. Does anyone want to share their draft definition of peace? You didn't get to your draft definitions of peace? And that's a good point, right? There, we have some, but peace that's a tough thing to define in a sentence, right? Hello? Let's have some peace in our room and pay attention to each other. So, anyone want to provide something what you were discussing?
Not exactly answering the question, but to understand peace, I've been trying to understand conflict. And I've been trying to understand another point of view, a lifestyle that I didn't grow up in. For instance, trying to understand the BLM movement and understand why that is necessary and why these people why the Black Lives Matter movement matters. So reading books about racism and oppression and just the history of our country to better understand that so that I can better respond and understand to that. So I've been knee-deep in, as Rudy said, I've been knee-deep in these stuff for about a year now. But I'm trying to do it by educating myself so that I can respond to those sorts of questions.
I think Dave has a really good follow-on to that when we were talking about how that journey relates to his personal family journey. Sure.
Oh, well, so I grew up in a Jewish home, and I've been doing my family genealogy for a lot of years, and I always knew that my grandmother's sister presumably died in the Holocaust. She disappeared in Europe. She was the one family member that did not immigrate. We have no records. We can only presume because her family disappeared. We've never heard from her. But I recently found another branch of my extended family, a third cousin, and all of her family, and dozens and dozens and dozens of that branch of the family died in the Holocaust. Because my second great-grandfather's brother never left Europe where everybody else did. And they all, and generations are gone.
Yeah.
so it just kind of brings some of that back around to what that means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your journey. Yeah, your journey. Absolutely. Anyone else want to talk anything about what you shared at your table? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm coming. No, we'll never hear you in the recording.
Oh, okay. Okay. Can you hear me now? Wow. So saying that peace is understanding, which is a beautiful thing, and also for us, we were talking a bit about just peace is focusing on home and yourself, and somewhat tied to understanding, but engaging in peace within your interpersonal relationships and a community, a harmony, a understanding. We said a few other words. A compromise. It's just this, but focus on these interpersonal networks, which a few of us at the table were sharing that we tend to think of peace always internationally, and bringing it close to home was a new thing for some of us.
Right, which is a great segue, which is one of the things that I want to help you do is to personally apply that, right? Those two steps. It's not a laundry list, but it might just be those interpersonal relationships where it starts at home. What is something that you could do tomorrow, whether it's within your family nucleus or maybe it's at work, maybe it's a coworker, how you are relating to them, those skills of how do you have more positive peace in those relationships versus the negative. And what are some of those two things maybe that just think about it. What is it that maybe you can do? It might be your children. It might wherever it starts, right? But in order, as Kate said, in order for us to look more broadly and more globally, sometimes it starts right here with us. I planted her. No, anyone else at your table? Go for it, Jen. The mic's coming.
Years ago, I was an Interact sponsor, and we were one of the original Pastor to Governor Juanita's Peace Builder Club. We got a certificate and a little recognition at one of the banquets. The school kids in the high school took off their lunch hour for about 3 months and did projects to qualify for that.
That's a great. Yep, go for it, Sue.
I think we talked at our table a little bit about a definition of peace being basically when people can live without having to worry about having their basic physical needs met. When those basic physical needs are met, not worrying about a roof over your head and where your next meal is coming from, then to me that's peace.
Mm-hmm. And that is something that the Positive Peace Index does take an advantage or take into consideration when they are doing those ratings. Anyone else before we move on?
Yeah, I just wanted to share some that I kind of grew up in. I'm too close. So the '60s generation. So at one point, when somebody said, "What's your image of peace?" I thought of Joni Mitchell's line. The planes, the warplanes flying shotgun in the sky, turning into butterflies above our nation, was always very powerful for me. One of the things that I'm getting engaged in Rotary over the last year or two, a couple of years, is feeling that there's people coming from different places, coming from military backgrounds, from Northern Virginia, right, CIA, and how in some of the incredible wonderfulness of some of those people who I would never have met, who came from, I would think, different worlds that I wasn't talking to, and having had that experience and seeing that they're deeply committed to peace. Also, and there's a lot of issues around all of that I think that I feel like I've grown very much because of that, this experience.
Well, as I said, we're on a journey, right? We're not going to have all the answers today or have all the definitions. It's just the beginning of a different way of thinking, right? When we do things. Something else more to think about, especially when I know we've mentioned the book a million times today, and like we said, we're not getting any royalties from mentioning the book. But when our club went through the book, as we are thinking about peace personally, or maybe even club or whatever level you're looking at, these were 3 questions that came up. Is peace a human right? Is it or should it be? And is it in every country? I hear a lot of people in here say yes, 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 but if you were in another country, might not be the answer, or it might be only for some people. But that was one of the questions that we talked about a lot is peace a human right? Or as you say, should it be a human right? And it lends to think about when you're thinking about a project, right? How often do you hear about peace? We heard about it a lot today, but do you hear a lot about it on the news? Yeah, and why don't we hear about peace in the news? It's not sexy. It's not sensational, right? The news always leads with this shooting in one part of D.C. Yeah, if it bleeds, it leads, right? Because we don't hear about that. They don't take the time to share all that. And the other thing, too, is what are you hearing from your leaders and your elected officials? Bill gave some examples this morning, but is there crime, right? Is there focus on peace? Re-election, but not really. Their focus isn't on what can we do in our communities. It's all of fighting crime. It's not leading with peace. It's still leading with violence. And these are some of the things that we have talked about because if you're looking at even small changes, it's a mind shift. It's not. These are some of the things we have to think about if we're thinking about, even like I said, club projects in your communities, the things that you can do to make a difference.
So how do we affect change at the local and elected officials level to get them to focus on why we have the crime as opposed to the symptom of the crime?
Yeah, it's a great question.
I think it leads to the definition of negative peace and positive peace, in that they are purporting to bring peace to your community by getting rid of crime, which is a piece of negative, an aspect of negative.
Right. But it doesn't necessarily address the root of why the crime is happening, right? That's all right. All right. Here, I'll go get Kate.
Don't give her the mic, though. That's the most dangerous.
I got it.
Wait,
Never get it back.
What's going to happen?
Rule.
No, is that okay? Is that all right?
She's dying.
Oh, okay.
It's okay.
I have 2 mics. I don't want bad feedback. All right, cool. Mic's good. I was going to say, what I realize is a rhetorical question, but about how to apply that. And of course, there's more around like mental models and shifting perspectives. But something that we were working on in Atlanta was looking at the city budget. And just for the city of Atlanta, a few years ago, because I used to live there, about 18% of the budget went to we would call an IEP, systems of violence, right? So like prisons, jails, police, body cameras, things like that. And then if you're using the positive peace framework, so if you're thinking about equitable distribution of resources, recognizing the rights of others, like right to food, housing, transport, after-school programs, education, all of those budget line items that would fall into those sections equated to 1.5% of the budget. So if you're thinking about also as a Rotary Club, and I'm not talking about going and legislating, I'm not advocating for political action, but if you're thinking as a Rotary Club of where could you also help with peace, thinking about your city and how much do they invest in those systems of positive peace, and thinking how can my Rotary Club contribute to that? Because part of what IEP is talking about is about working on the slow change of a system. So not just handing out food, but what's the system can you help? Can you help raising funding and doing fundraisers for SNAP benefits to give people more access to food? Or is it about helping an after-school program get started again after it's closed because there's no funding. I mean, I'm just throwing things out there, but I found that to be really helpful for me when wondering, like, I have all these numbers and know about these systems of violence and systems of peace, but what do I actually do on the large scale? So, just want to share that.
Yeah, and that's a great point. What is one of our 7 areas of focus? Community economic development. Right? When you think about it, where we're training people to have a skill to use to be self-sufficient, and they don't turn to crime to have money or have. Yes.
I'm going to go back a little bit to an earlier comment that was made. I was more than excited to hear Kevin, Peace Fellow Kevin, talk about how his group is working with the Senate. It is so important that that whole section on leaders and elected officials, if our elected officials understood these 8 pillars and would work to develop those within communities, we would be in a better situation. And with somebody, a Peace Fellow of Rotary, working with the Senate to do a similar thing, to me, is worth every penny we spend on a Peace Fellow.
Which leads to what we will talk about next. The only thing I will tag onto that is it is humbling every time I hear a Peace Fellow speak. Humbling the work they are doing in places that many of us would never go. Let's be honest. How many of us would willingly go to Iraq, Yemen, Syria? I mean, to do this work. It's dangerous work. When Dr. Davidson talked to us the other night, I mean, his life has been threatened more than once in the work that he's done, and so it just really is humbling the work they're doing. Which leads us great to what can we do, right? As a club, what can we do? Because I think there are many things, and Bill talked about some of them this morning. Because you can become, like he talked about, a Peace Builder Club. You can take that free. I would take it one step further with the Positive Peace Academy. Make it a program of your club. Whoever wants to take it, have everybody take that. It's free. They don't have to pay for anything. It's just their time. Take it and then have some discussions on it. Have a couple of programs on it so that you can actually talk about what you're learning. Not just take it and say, check, we took it, here's my certificate. But what can I do with it? What can I say as a club? Whoever's interested. Maybe it's just a group. It may not be the whole club, and that's okay. It may not be every Rotary Club member's dream that they want to do that. But the interested people, right? That's what's important, is the people that are really interested in that. Have them do it, make it a program, and talk about it and discuss it. That's what helped us when we did the book, because then you're talking about it, right? I'm not an educator, but you want to apply it, right? It's not just reading to read, but really reading to use it and to apply the knowledge that you learn. And then talked a little bit about incorporating peace into your projects. And that looks different for each club and what they might want to do. But I think that it's something that we can incorporate in as one of our 7 areas of focus, right? When you're working on a district grant or a global grant. How exciting to hear from the Peace Fellows that they want to engage in global grants. I think that's really awesome. And if you haven't gone out to the Rotary Peace Fellow alumni website, go check it out. That's how we found Kate to come here and be with us today. But it's a great resource of our Peace Fellows that you can utilize. So which leads me to the last thing, because I know I'm getting short on my time. But one of the things that we wanted to talk about briefly was the difference between a peace project and a project with peace. Because there is a difference. It depends on what your focus is. If it's intentionally on peace, then that should be the focus. It might just be a happy outcome of what your project is actually doing. But it's important to think about the difference of it. And if you want to dive into it, this Positive Peace Implementation Guide, another free resource from the IEP. That could probably be a class all on its own, that we could be here half of the day discussing all the information in it that you can use to create your peace project. And I encourage you to go out and look at it. But what I want you to do now at your table with each other is I want you to brainstorm for a minute and think about, what does a peace project look like? Or would our club might want to do a project with peace? But think about, in your communities, thinking about those 8 pillars of what we've been talking about today. What might be something that you could do in your communities to start this? So let's take a few minutes, because then I want to give Juanita time to talk about what the district, we're going to jumpstart the Peace Builder Club initiative in our district. But I want to give you a few minutes to think about this. What might you take away from today that might be something that might be interesting for your club to endeavor? So, all right. No, I'm not done. You got to talk. I want to hear you. I want to hear a couple ideas in a couple of minutes. No pressure.